Hello and welcome to a discussion with two very eminent and extremely interesting colleagues that I have the pleasure of introducing this afternoon. It is about data, about spatial data, and the UN Biodiversity Lab 2.0. Let me briefly welcome, first of all, Brad Smith, the president of Microsoft, and Inger Andersen, the executive director of the United Nations Environment Programme. We are talking about this partnership between UNDP, UNEP, and Microsoft because it is a spatial data portal that is powered by Microsoft's Planetary Computer. And with that, Brad, if I may throw the ball over to you, and perhaps you could say a couple of words about what is the Planetary Computer and why is Microsoft building it? And what was your vision also when you first started? And we now find ourselves in this unique opportunity of working together in the United Nations family and with you and Microsoft.
Well, first of all, thank you. It's great to be here with both of you because this work, I do believe, is so important. 2 years ago or so, Microsoft's Environmental Sustainability Group really conceived and launched this planetary computer. And what it really is a global geospatial data set. Well, what is a geospatial data set? Think of it as a data set that provides a map of the world down to a 10-meter resolution of a series of overlays. It captures satellite imagery of the entire planet. It captures, say, climate forecasts. It captures local biodiversity data about the water, the natural resources in a location. And it can all be put to use by scientists around the world with the help of machine learning that is part of the planetary computer as well. And then when you really think about why we would do that, well, it's obvious. I think it's so we can manage the world's biodiversity based on better data to understand it. And then how do we make this a success? Well, in part, this points to, I think, the critical partnership we're talking about here.
Thank you very much, Brad. And Inger, what does the UN Biodiversity Lab then do with this extraordinary power of computing, of analyzing data, and what problems are we actually trying to solve by having that lab?
Well, I mean, it's a really exciting collaboration here. And obviously, we know from just our daily lives that nature is no longer working. And so now we are in the middle of negotiating a new framework. It's sort of the COP21 for biodiversity. Biodiversity people would not like me saying that, but everybody heard about COP21, so I'm doing it anyway. This is COP15, where we're going to agree these big agreements on a number of issues. And so having this data will matter. It'll matter for spatial planning. It'll matter for so we know what we're going to protect, but it'll also matter so that we can minimize the impact that we are having on biodiversity. We will measure better. And that would be key to build both the net zero plans for climate, but also to meet the biodiversity targets. You know, we talked about the SDGs to have sufficient targets, to have sufficient data, to understand what is it that our environment is doing positively or negatively to aid us in landing all of the SDGs. And here we really need to be informed better. We need to measure better, and businesses need to do more business more sustainably. So this data will be through digital technology a real help once we get smart about it, once we have it more customized. Very, very helpful for spatial planning, for urban planning, for integrating nature into the lives positively of everyone. And finally, just maybe on agriculture, since agriculture is a huge driver of biodiversity loss, understanding then with this data where we have high biodiversity, where we have high agricultural productivity, and at the same time have good biodiversity. And what are the factors? There's a lot that we can learn here so that we can take it to the country level and help reach the Sustainable Development Goal, including obviously growth and poverty reduction.
And just to add, I think one of the, to me, also very exciting possibilities that, the last 10, 20 years we have been creating more and more data sets across the world. But it doesn't make it easier necessarily either for a land use planner or for a government, a parliament, a citizen, an NGO, or a scientist for that matter to gain access. And one of the wonderful things I think that I see in the UN Biodiversity Lab is that it now literally provides access to more than 400 spatial data sets across biodiversity, climate change, development. And I think this is a unique service because you can literally go into it now, as I understand, and get spatial metrics for just about any place on Earth. And just imagine what an extraordinary breakthrough this is in terms of what you just described, Inge, when decisions have to be made. And Brad, to your point of how one connects knowledge, begins to also be able to leverage artificial intelligence, i.e. that digital universe that suddenly connects to the most fundamental forms of life. And I wanted to come back to Brad and say, what made you, in a sense, invest and believe and contribute to making this partnership between Microsoft and our two UN organizations become something that became a priority for you?
I think it was really two things. One is something that is sort of commonplace and almost common sense for people who work in business like I do, which is that fundamentally you cannot manage what you cannot measure. But there's a second piece as well, and this is the connection. I just think that the UN Biodiversity Lab is of just fundamental importance. I mean, what the UNEP and what UNDP have the opportunity to do together is bring the data and the insights and the science and then the public policy, so that this is an effective tool that will guide policy, shape policy, and then I hope, help the world hold itself accountable, help governments hold themselves accountable. And I just think that is a uniquely important role that needs to be advanced in all this.
Well, I think Inge would probably echo this, but from the vantage point of UNEP, I mean, how would you describe the inherent logic that I think we're all building on in this UN Biodiversity Lab in coming together?
No, it's very, very fortuitous because we get the UNDP, which has a boots on the ground, which has masses of real connections at the country level, has this comprehensive presence, and of course we get state of the art from our friends at Microsoft, and that coming together. For us, we're building the World Environment Situation Room, as you know, that takes all of this data from the various data sets. But environmental data is often in big data sets managed here and there. So making that available through this collaboration is really quite magnificent. And here I will say that I really acknowledge Microsoft's progressive moves on sustainability with the planetary computer, and really is an example of how science and data and development and environmental knowledge can work together.
The other thing I would just say that I think really builds on that is, the good news is there is a lot of data. We're no longer, in a proverbial data desert. Maybe we're now trying to make our way through a data jungle. There's so much data all around us. But interestingly, that creates challenges of its own. And then the one other thing I think that is always relevant here is that we constantly need to invest in helping people acquire the skills needed to put all of this to work. This is true for literally every government on the planet. It's true for every business on the planet.
We have this oceans of data, but drops of information, right? And so how do we put this data together and get intel out of it that we can plan for it? And I think that is the next step. And that is exactly what we need to now. We need to get much smarter analytics and understanding that it's not just the environmental data, because that's fine and dandy and that's hard enough. But then we need to overlay it with diseases and with understanding of economic growth and with drivers of growth or barriers to growth, etc., to really unlock the development potential of what this data holds and the sustainability development goal potential.
I think from my perspective, it's the empowerment of people to actually have access to data. There's a degree of democratization also of information. There used to be a time when there were very few people who had access to a great deal of data and the majority did not. we live in an age where I think access to data, and particularly in the way that the Biodiversity Lab, I think, is also linking into spatial dimensions. People in the end live in places. They decide what happens on a piece of land or on a piece of coastline or in the oceans. And this wonderful opportunity, I think, that we are able to create together and with many, many partners. And so in that spirit, I just want to join both you, Inger, and Brad, and say, great partnership. I think we have already learned a lot. Hopefully, with Moore's Law, we will also see the equivalent that with every 6 months that pass, we will see a doubling of the users that are out there and above all, the impact on the ground. So I think with that, to all of you who are watching, from the three of us, please use the UN Biodiversity Lab and let's continue to build these kinds of partnerships.
Thank you.
Thank you.